Good morning, everybody, and warm welcome on behalf of the Center for International Relations and Sustainable Development. It's an honor for us to co-host this meeting. My name is Vuk Jeremic. I'm the former president of the UN General Assembly, and the future has never been as significant a parameter of the presence as it is today. The world is changing in unprecedented ways in so many dimensions, and the main driver of this change is technology. So it gives me a particular pleasure to introduce a truly outstanding speaker, one of the world's most successful entrepreneurs in technology visionaries, Changpeng Zhao, better known as CZ. It is hardly exaggeration to say that he is to the world of blockchain and crypto what Novak Djokovic is to the world of tennis. He is the founder and the CEO of Binance, the world's leading blockchain ecosystem behind the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange. Almost an order of a magnitude bigger than its next competitor. The volume of trading at Binance yesterday was eye-popping $110 billion. So welcome, CZ, and my first question to you is, what made Binance so successful and different from all the others in the field?
Well, Vuk, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's an honor and a pleasure. I think for anything to be successful, you have to do many things correctly or well, relatively well. You cannot, for anything to fail, you only need one thing to go wrong. But I think just basic like product, service, etc. Fundamentally, though, I think what made us successful is our user protection. We value our users, so we do. It's our culture, our value system. To run a platform that moves a large amount of value, that moves $110 billion a day, users trust us with their money, with our crypto, which is basically money. And that trust is really, really important. I think that I think we do have a slight superiority in terms of product technology, etc. But it's just building that trust, and that trust is not something we say. It's decisions we make and actions we took that earn trust over time. So I think that's the most important part. There's quite a lot of misconceptions about, being global, being not regulated helps growth. That's a misconception. The growth comes from your users trusting you.
So, well, speaking of which, CZ, one of the biggest criticisms coming from the general public of the blockchain industry is indeed around user safety, like cybercrime or money laundering and whatnot. So what do you think that industry leaders as well as regulators to make this a safer place for all its participants?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's very important for industry players and regulators to work together. In a new industry, there are many bad players because in 2017, during the ICO days, because it's so easy to raise money using this new tool, it actually attracts a lot of not so illegitimate projects, not so legitimate funders, or to pure scammers. And because it's a decentralized space, it's actually quite hard to regulate. Anybody can issue ICO. And then now with DeFi, NFTs, etc. So I think we have been fighting really hard to fight illicit players in the space, and we welcome regulation. We want to work with regulators to share our know-hows and to share our experiences, and also understand what they want to do from a traditional financial space industry, so that we can bridge the gap and lead by example on how to properly regulate the space. I think in any new space, you will have many of these issues. In the early days of the internet, or even today, there's credit card fraud. There's many other scammers that's still there, identity theft, etc. But now people, because of this new technology, we need to play catch up a little bit. I think basically fundamentally, the industry players and the regulators need to work together to bring healthy regulations into the space, and that's something we are very actively doing.
So again, speaking of which, you gave me a great entry into the next question. So do you think that the blockchain and the crypto industry can or should be regulated in the same way as the traditional financial industry?
I think that there will definitely be some differences. I think the first step, that first logical step, most regulators, even if I was a regulator, I probably would do is just borrow the existing financial regulations into crypto. But crypto is fundamentally different, and there are many new. And right now, to be honest, most regulators are only looking at the centralized exchange part, which is a larger, like, revenue generating part of the business. But there are many new applications in the decentralized space. There's DeFi, there's no KYC AML on most DeFi protocols. And it's kind of difficult to implement that as well, to enforce that, because anybody can deploy a smart contract on the blockchain. And people can do it anonymously. People can do it out of any country in the world that regulators may or may not have jurisdiction over. There's NFTs, there's GameFi, there's sports fan tokens, there's DSO, decentralized social networks. So there's all these new things that's coming out at a breakneck speed, and it's not. I think all of these things doesn't exist in the traditional financial industry. NFTs doesn't exist in the traditional financial industry. How do you can't use an existing one to regulate that? So I think we can borrow from what we know already, but we need to evolve that. We need to adjust that, and we need to enhance those. So I think it's an ongoing process that the industry players do need to work very closely with regulators. And also the other thing is, most regulators today, in the banking regulatory world, many of the regulators come from a banking industry. They know how that works. But today, because this industry is so new, many of the regulators do not have experience running a large cryptocurrency exchange or running a DeFi project. The industry is not mature enough for them to have those kind of experiences. So it's very important for them to understand what industry players care about, what are the issues we face. There are some regulations which are made without considering the practicality of implementations. So we want to improve those. Yeah.
So you've been obviously having lengthy conversations, not only as of lately, but as of lately in particular, with regulators and policymakers. So what are the biggest or most frequent misconceptions that you are encountering when you talk to them, the regulators and policymakers?
Well, there's quite a few, actually. Number one is they think crypto guys are crazy. So that's a misconception. We didn't, any of the successful businesses did not grow big by being crazy. They grow big because they provide value to the users, and the way to provide value is to build trust. The other misconception that people have about me specifically, they think Binance is a China exchange. I look Chinese. I'm Chinese by blood, but I left China when I was 12. I don't have any. I never had a Chinese passport or a nationality since then. I've been Canadian for 30-something years, and so we are nowhere near China. There are even misconceptions that they think that Singapore is part of China. Some people in the Western world may or may not understand some of the details. They just think all Asia is one part. So there's many of those kind of misconceptions we would like to clarify. And so Binance is an international platform. It is the most international platform. And we're not crazy guys. We want regulation.
So. Actually, now that you say that you want more regulation, you have launched something very momentous recently. It was called, if I'm not mistaken, the Crypto Bill of Rights. So about a quarter of a millennium after James Madison and the original Bill of Rights, we're now faced with the Crypto Bill of Rights launched by you. So can you tell us a little bit more about this campaign, and why do you think it's so significant?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's very few organizations in the world that talk to regulators about cryptocurrency regulations as much as we do. So we have been communicating. We have had the privilege and also the honor to communicate this in a lot of detail. And we do see that there are different regulators care about different things, but fundamentally, sometimes we get so narrow looking at something that we forget the whole picture, and consumers are not part of this conversation typically, and so we want to share what our views and what the high level thought processes. We actually have a more detailed document on what would be a recommended regulatory framework from us. And we would like to, we also sharing that with regulators around the world now. And at some point, we'll probably publish that as well. So we want to share this knowledge so that people know at least our stance, our views, and our recommendations. They may or may not be all taken, but I think fundamentally, we said, look, we got to adopt a collaborative approach. The industry players need to work with regulators. We need to welcome regulation. And most importantly, we need to protect consumers. We need to protect their assets, their rights, and also their access to crypto. I personally is a crypto diehard convert. Of course, I believe this is the future. This is the future technology that will power money, which will also power financial economies, and every other economic sector depend on the financial sector. So I believe this is a very, very important thing for people to have access to. We should not block out people's access to technology innovation and to the future of financial systems. So yeah, so we feel that it's better for us to share that, and yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing.
So you were also recently quoted as saying that Binance is going to transition to being a true financial services company. So how does that differ from what you currently are, and what do you mean exactly by a true financial services company?
Yeah, so Binance is about 4.5 years into our history. The first 4 years, we kind of operated like an internet platform. Exponential growth, lots of users coming in, providing the tools and technologies to run the platform, etc. I think over the last few years, the regulators are increasingly more interested in this space, given the growth of this space. And this year, very specifically, I think many regulators are looking at this industry. And when the regulators look at this industry, they typically are the financial regulators. So we need to transition from a technology company into a financial services company with all the proper licenses, and with the existing licenses for financial services, hopefully with new licenses for crypto assets wherever they're available. So more and more of them are coming out in different parts of the world. And so I think having some regulation is actually good for the industry, because right now, the people who are in crypto is probably less than 5% of the population globally. Those guys are the early adopters. They are okay with depositing money onto a website without any licenses, etc. But then going forward, I think for the mass adoption, people actually probably prefer platforms who are licensed, who are regulated, etc. That actually provides a level of comfort and also a level of transparency. And we want to do that too. So
are there any jurisdictions that are currently, in your opinion, setting a good example about how this whole thing should be approached and regulated?
I think, to be honest, US is probably one of the best examples of a place that's very friendly to cryptocurrency exchanges. US is the only economy that has a cryptocurrency exchange getting listed on NASDAQ, which is a significant milestone. And the US banks work quite well with cryptocurrency exchanges. Binance US, Coinbase, they're able to integrate with the SCH protocol, which allows them to deduct users' bank balances automatically each month, with the user's prior authorization only once. So whereas we look at other parts of the world, Singapore, no commercial banks work with cryptocurrency exchanges, not us, not other cryptocurrency exchanges. And there are many, and then various degrees of support, but I would say US is probably the most progressive in terms of centralized exchange regulation. US, yeah. But there's many other parts to crypto in addition to the centralized exchanges I mentioned before. So there's DeFi, NFTs, etc. Very few countries have clear regulations on those just yet.
So we are, as a matter of fact, hearing more central banks planning to use or issue their own digital currencies, their own digital national currencies. And so what's your take on that? Is in the future, in your opinion, everybody going to have a currency together with the fiat currency, to have a digital currency together with its own national one?
So there's quite a lot of there's quite a few different aspects to that. It's not as simple as black and white. People either like it or not like it, or people either use it or not use it. The central bank issue digital currencies, even though they use the blockchain technology, they probably have private keys, public keys, wallets, addresses, etc. So the technology look very similar. There will probably be very big differences in their properties. Central bank issued digital currencies probably will continue to have unlimited supply, meaning the central bank can mint more money at will and relatively at will and with the press of a button. Whereas the native cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, they are limited supply. So there's no inflation. There's no quantitative easing at all. So that that limited supply property of money is quite important, and that'll be different between the two. I think. I don't see any central bank digital currencies having limited supply. The second is permission or permissionless. For example, today citizens in China can only move to up to $50K US per year of money out of China. Any more than that is deemed as money laundering. So money laundering, the word has different meanings in different parts of the world. So now if you use a central bank digital currency, that restriction probably will still apply. So if you want to take $1 million, if you're after tax money and invest in a project somewhere else in the world, it's probably going to be a very either not allowed or very difficult. It probably takes months to get approvals, etc. And that so there's a very limited the limited degree of freedom probably matters to certain users, and then because of the limited degree in freedom, there's a high cost. It may take you 6 months to apply for permission to do that, and that's your time, that's your team's time, that's opportunity cost. So the cost will be different. So I think we need to look at the fundamental properties. The central bank digital currencies I do think they're very positive for the industry. Number one, they serve as a validation for blockchain technology. If central banks are using this technology to issue their own currencies, then that validates the blockchain technology. And that also serves as an educational, a very strong educational purpose, because the central banks and the governments are pushing this. They will be educating the population about this. And you cannot learn about blockchain without learning about Bitcoin. People will read about Bitcoin. People will learn about the properties of Bitcoin. The central bank digital currencies also have the potential of saying that, okay, the government says you have to use it. They will force all shops, all banks to adopt it. So you will have forced adoption, and that might actually increase the adoption of crypto overall. And the last part is some countries may say, okay, we're going to block Bitcoin and we just push our own. That would not be a good situation for that country if the countries do that. So far, no countries have done that as far as I know. Even in China, they do not allow cryptocurrency exchanges, but they allow people to hold Bitcoin. Holding Bitcoin is perfectly legal in China still. So there are different various aspects, but overall though, I think having another option, having another cryptocurrency, even if it's unlimited supply, even if it's permission, it's still another choice that we didn't have before. Having more choices is generally better than not having them.
So basically, speaking now about the general public, going back to the general public, vast majority of people, when they hear blockchain, they think, oh, this is Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, but blockchain is a very powerful technology. So what are the other uses for the blockchain technology that hold the potential to transform the lives of the people in the century?
Oh, there are many, many things. I think the blockchain technology is the first time in human history that we're able to collectively maintain and trust that record without a central party involved. And this is no one's rejected. If you follow the protocol, you accept it in the network. This has very far-reaching applications like notarization of record, land titles, even elections, etc. So I think all of those are supply chain logistics, verifications, insurance, etc. There's many, many different applications to it. So I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. But just even at the tip of the iceberg, we're at the tip of the iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg is the financial industry, money. So this technology is very adaptable to money. Well, people may classify Bitcoin as different asset types, but fundamentally it has value. And then we're still at the tip of the iceberg for the financial part. So there's a huge part that we're not even looking at. Well, most of us are not even looking at yet, but the potential is definitely there. If you look at like 20, 40, 50 years out, yeah, I think we'll get there, yeah.
Well, that is very, very inspiring, what you said. And then generally, you're one of the most inspirational technology leaders in the world, and certainly amongst the most successful global entrepreneurs. But I'm going to ask you a personal question right now. Who, to you personally, is the most admirable person or persons in the world of tech?
Yeah, so I have many admirable persons. So I admire Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, even Warren Buffett, many of these guys. But I think the person that stand out is I believe still Elon Musk. He's a very strong entrepreneur, and he managed multiple businesses, and they're all on a grand scale. He's mission driven, so he's a little bit weird. But he is a phenomenal entrepreneur. So I think if I was going to single one guy out today, it has to be him. I'm kind of sad that Steve Jobs is not with us. Otherwise, we probably would have more interesting tools to play with, toys to play with. And but yeah, Elon Musk though, I don't approve every part of it, especially the way he tweets about he's pro crypto and then he's like negative on Bitcoin. I wish he stayed just positive all the time. I think as such a large influence with such number of followers, you can't swing because it does impact price. So what you say publicly does cause markets to move, and I wish he can be cognizant of that and be more careful with that. But overall, I respect him hugely.
Well, thank you very much, CZ. And to end on a most positive note, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to thank you on behalf of the global community of town hall participants that watched you from all over the world. We are going to continue following very keenly Binance and the crypto space in general. We hope to hear more from you on various fronts, from the Bill of Rights to future exciting endeavors. Thank you very much for devoting this time to us, and may the force be with you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.